Good morning, neighbors. I'm Julius Clark, your local Indianapolis realtor, and welcome to The Pulse. Today we've got on an architect friend of mine, Jeremy Portillo. He's an architect focused a little bit more on the sustainability aspect of builds and renovations. Took a lot of steps to get to where he is currently, but Jeremy, I'll let you tell us yourself. How'd you get to where you are today being a great architect?
Yeah, so um, it's been a wild road, right? I grew up in Fort Wayne, and the summer before high school, my parents moved us to Florida. Um, got three siblings, so it was a big family. We wound up outside of Fort Walton Beach, Pensacola, and I mean, I hated everything, right? Because I got ripped up from my friends and my family. And so kind of found a new path. And I wound up going to college at a HBCU in Tallahassee, Florida. I went to Florida A&M and got my architecture degree, 2 degrees actually, and then wound up back in Pensacola for my first job. That firm hired me right before the recession, right? So it was kind of a hairy situation, but I managed to keep my job the whole time, even while like a lot of my classmates were losing theirs. They were having to find work, doing other things. But at this firm, I was working on mostly government buildings. So kind of cool things like an F-35 training simulator. That was pretty cool. Got to work on like headquarters buildings and dining facilities, did some special forces work, did some barracks and some lodges, but I'm not as interested in industrial or large commercial projects. I really love homes, and I love designing things specifically for people that I can interact and communicate with. And so I jumped ship after about 5 years and found a job at a really high-end residential firm in a little bayside town called Fairhope, Alabama, and it's north of Gulf Shores. So if you're like a Hoosier through and through, a lot of people go to Gulf Shores, Orange Beach to vacation these days. So I know it's getting a lot more popular. And I spent almost 10 years in Fairhope working for two firms, both high-end residential, but one firm specifically, the most recent firm, was focused on sustainability and healthy buildings. And I have a knack for that anyway. I love thinking holistically, and I'm kind of a hippie myself. I'm into healthy foods, and yeah. So I met my wife at the first job that I was at, and we've got two girls and two boys now. She stays at home and schools them. We're homeschoolers, and that just goes to show I'm a bit more of a hippie than I might put on. But about 3 years ago, back in like 2020, we just felt like God was saying, "Go! It's time to move. It's time to do something." And I really wanted to wind up in the mountains. I love the outdoors. I love um, hiking and just interacting with nature. And we felt like that wasn't really where we're supposed to be. So somehow, on a huge leap of faith, I wound up in Indianapolis, um, started a firm with a laptop in hand as soon as we got here. And it's been a startup story. It's been an entrepreneurial journey. Um, Especially coming into town like right after COVID. And so starting from scratch with like no contracts and nothing but a new MacBook and hoping I can figure things out. It's been a wild ride, but I joined multiple real estate groups and networking groups. I'm in some entrepreneurial groups now. So I'm just kind of networking my way to the top. And this year is going to be big. So yeah, that's me.
Perfect. I was trying to look through. I got this big stack of cards next to my desk. I know yours is in here somewhere. I wanted to show off your design, but couldn't. Could you remind everybody what the name of your firm is?
Yeah, so my business is Retrofit Design, and it's architecture and consulting. My tagline, so to speak, is comfort, efficiency, and health. Like those are my big three. Um, health is just something that I'm into. So I'm trying to make better air quality for my clients. I'm trying to make better spaces for my clients. And then the efficiency side kind of brings about a level of comfort that you don't get on most buildings. So when you're building things to be tighter and more efficient, you end up with you don't have that cold bathroom upstairs that nobody understands why it's freezing cold, and you don't have that really hot room downstairs that's just always cooking and you can't figure out. You have to like shut the vents so that you're not getting too much heat in the wintertime. Um, but yeah, I'm mostly focused on residential. I do dabble in a little bit of like commercial work too, but my ideal client is definitely a residential project.
Perfect. And one thing you didn't touch on, you are a homeowner in the great state of Indiana as well. So that is something else you got going for you as well. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, we bought in pre-COVID. There were tons of houses to buy. In the middle of COVID, that started shrinking quickly, and then post-COVID, what's left? So we wound up buying a house in Little Flower on the east side, and it's a great little neighborhood. And the folks that helped us get into that both said, "Look, if you guys don't buy this for your family, we're going to buy it as an investment. So you need to buy this. It's worth it." And then since then, I've gotten into one other deal that I'm actually in the process of getting out of. It was a little rental house down in Columbus, and that, oh gosh, like 50% increase in my capital in a year. So that was a great short-term investment that really has come out well. So
Yeah, it's always fun to see who that's touches the real estate world in any way buys real estate as well. Just gives a little bit greater insight of what the market's like and everything. Well, thanks so much for giving a little bit of an intro on who you are. Let's talk a little bit more about the work that you do. What kind of clients do you primarily work with?
yeah, my ideal client is probably someone who's a little bit of a hippie like me, or is interested in eco-friendly or responsible stewardship of materials. Someone who's looking at clean ingredients in their food products, or their cleaning products. Someone who is probably an early adapter of um, you know battery powered cars, or not battery powered cars, but electric vehicles, or someone who's riding the electric scooters around town or electric bikes. People who are into the outdoors and respecting nature. Um, and like I said, generally they're residential in nature, but I work with investors. I've worked with people who are interested in building civic projects. One client of mine is trying to build a retreat for people who have Lyme disease and are extra sensitive to mold or chemicals. So a variety of clients, but it's all generally geared towards healthier living.
Perfect, man. And how do you achieve a good life work balance? You started a company with your computer, probably means you're pretty accessible virtually all the time. How have you been able to achieve that life work balance with four kids and a wife?
Yeah, there is no balance. It's a constant ebb and flow. Some days I'm awake at 1 a.m. on my laptop playing a movie in the background and got my headphones on, trying not to wake anybody up while I'm just grinding on a project. And other days I just take off and I don't do anything and I don't talk to anyone and I just blow off whatever I've got that day. And I don't put off a meeting if I've got something already scheduled. But it's a constant changing rush of work and waiting. And so, especially being an architect, that's kind of bred into us through school. Like, um, we often joke in architecture communities that the slogan of every architecture school is "the lights are always on," because night or day, anytime you walk into that building, somebody's in there blaring some music, trying to stay awake and finish a project, because you're going through iteration after iteration after iteration of design, and like it's got to get done. So how do you find a way to knock it out? Well, you just work at 3 a.m. That's how you do it. And even at work, most architecture firms, don't generally promote. They promote deadlines more than they promote good work-life balance. And so I'm trying to figure that out on my own now as an entrepreneur and a sole practitioner. But yeah, it's just hit or miss. I never know what to expect.
Yeah, man, I definitely feel that, especially on the agent side. I'm dealing with a lot of people from out of state who have different time zones. It's come to the point where it's like best case scenario they're from California. Got a lot of people from overseas now reaching out, and that gets hairy on the whole timeline issue or work
Oh
life
yeah.
balance. Perfect, man. You help your clients out. The work life balance, it can be tough to manage. We understand. What are the actual tasks that you're performing for clients? What does an architect do to help provide a dream home?
No, that's a great question. I feel like, especially in the last few months, I've had enough conversations with people that I'm starting to realize people really don't understand what architects do. They think that, oh, somebody has an idea about something, so the architect goes and draws it on paper, and you submit that for a permit, and you're done. And so actually, it's funny you asked because yesterday I put on a presentation for one of my networking groups and did a deep dive into like 15 minutes on what architects actually do, what all it entails. And I mean, we take ideas, yes, about form, about function, about needs versus want, and turn those thoughts into something tangible, a structure that has beauty, it has value, that there's purpose. And so there's a lot of conceptualization, there's a lot of note taking, and then there's a lot of, thinking, a lot of work involved in how do you meld all these things together and make a beautiful end product that somebody is excited to live in or enjoy or use. And so, especially with like a niche in health, I'm always looking to take a 10 out of 10 project and bump it up to 13, because how can I take it that extra mile? And it gets even hairier when, there's a budget. Not everybody's got just bottomless pockets. So there's always a budget to be concerned with. And so how do you do better while respecting and stewarding well the capital or the savings that my clients have put together?
Yeah, man. Sounds like you do a lot to help out your clients. At the end of the day, they can do whatever they want as long as they can pay for what they want. I know that's always been a challenge. I'll do walkthroughs, and people are like, well, can we do this, this, and that to the home? Like, you can. It's just going to cost money to do so.
Right.
So that's definitely one of the more important parts of getting your house remodeled, is figuring out what's actually going to cost and if you're going to be able to afford those renovations. Perfect,
Mhm.
man.
Yeah.
So, got a pretty good idea of what you do. Why do you do it? Well, it sounds like a lot of hassle. You're getting involved in a really personal aspect of people's lives. What keeps you going every day to hop back on the phones and get back on the plans every day?
Yeah, I love building connections. Yes, it's a hassle. Yes, it's an emotional roller coaster. Yeah, sometimes you're in the middle of an argument between a husband and a wife, but I love building the connections. I don't want my clients to feel like I'm providing a transaction with them, that they're just going to take what I provide and walk away and we're never going to talk again, because I want to see how they're using the space. Is it really working? It's self-serving because it helps me provide a better product to future clients. But I want to know, did the ideas that I thought were going to happen in the space actually happen, and how do they actually work out in the long run? And so I had this dream of eventually taking my solo startup career and building a teaching firm where I can empower kids who can't afford college. I mean, I was really lucky to have a great bunch of scholarships to pay my way through school. But for the kids who don't or can't, I mean, I grew up dirt poor in Fort Wayne, and just in a uncomfortable way, I felt like I never really fit in. And somehow, by the grace of God, I'm still here. I'm still moving forward. I don't know if I'm just stubborn. I just never quit. But I want to be able to build a firm that can take kids who might not have a chance but love art, they love design, they love creativity and thinking in creative ways and problem solving, and help them find a niche market in architecture, and then eventually somehow work that into building new urbanist developments, like a 5-minute neighborhood outside Indy that, or anywhere for that matter, that has all the amenities. It's got everything that you could need right there. And I think there's something to be said for helping build the greater good of the community in doing something like that. It's just putting all the pieces together to get to a point where we can actually do something like that.
Yeah, putting you on the spot a little bit, I bet a lot of people listening don't understand exactly what new urbanism is. Could you describe a couple of the principles?
Yeah, I mean, it generally revolves around a walkable downtown. Like, you can live and work within minutes of each other. And it's kind of the whole concept of the 15-minute city thing that people are either really for or really against right now. There's a lot of conspiracy theory around it, but that, like, for instance, the town that I grew up, or the town that I lived in just prior down south in Alabama, and also Zionsville, where I know you're from. Those two towns are very walkable. You can get around town on foot in 5-10 minutes, and you can walk past the grocery. You can go get your coffee. You can go do your work. If you need to swing by the dry cleaners, it's all there. So just providing for communities to be built around the infrastructure that supports them, instead of needing to go, halfway across town to get something. It's all right there. And so, especially with me being kind of health minded, I want to make sure that I'm including, you know, uh, walkways and pathways and trails through the woods, or creating the woods that maybe used to exist and have been torn down and turned into a cornfield. I would love to be able to grow produce on site that then goes to either a farm to table restaurant or is part of the produce that is supplied to the grocery store, in the neighborhood. And so just trying to integrate and create something that is both accessible for people of various income levels, mixed income, and also something that is sustainable and self-sustaining and resilient, and can be somewhere that people can build equity in both their own house and their community over time.
Perfect. Little update for you, Jeremy. I'm going to be buying my first elderberry trees here probably later in March. We'll see what the weather looks like.
All right.
They're going to be hanging out on my apartment balcony, so don't know how well they'll do. Got to definitely make
Hey,
sure
I've
they
got
don't
a big
frost.
backyard if you want to plant some at my house too.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see how many I can get. Perfect, man. Now that we've got to know you a little bit more and what it is that you do, I wanted to get into our topic of the month, which is like home renovations or home rehabs. Didn't say that at the top of the show, but that's okay. We've got a lot of that going on here in the city, whether it's large scale development with the Indy Circle Center Mall getting redeveloped, other areas, the hospitals, people. That seeps into people's lives as well when all the development's going on in the city, and they want to also develop and redevelop their homes to be the place that they want to live for various reasons. So the first topic we've got in home renovations or rehabs is all about budgeting. What are the essential factors to consider when starting out a renovation budget?
Yeah, so everything always costs more next year, and it costs more now than it did a year ago. And I think that's pretty much common knowledge at this point in our economic cycle, where you go to the grocery store and you're wondering why you spent $100 when you only walked out with 5 things. And so just having a contingency plan in place for unexpected expenses, because that's going to happen, and there's always going to be some complication, even on a new construction project where everything's laid out in advance. You might run into the fact that the supplier can't get you the posts or the beams on time, and now you've got to rethink the order of construction sequencing, and there's going to be a cost to that. So just doing it now is always better than doing it later. I mean, there's some caveats to that, but for the most part, if you wait 10 years, it's going to cost more.
Mm-hmm.
So getting a good plan, put together now and getting started is probably going to be better, because, budgets are going to get broken. So you plan all you want and hope for the best.
Yeah, like you said, budgets are always going to get broken, but how can you maybe mitigate some of those unexpected budget changes?
Yeah, so again, like just having a really solid plan put together ahead of time, so that by the time you get to construction, everyone's on the same page. If you've got um, so in Indianapolis anyway, we can uh, get online and look at the construction documents that are submitted for permit from other projects, and so it's public access anywhere, public domain. But in Indy, you just get online and do a Google search or do a quick search for an address and find those permit drawings. And a lot of the permit drawings that I see are stripped down, bare bones, like the absolute bare minimum it would take to get the permit. And I think there's a lot of reasons people do that. Usually it has to do with budget, but what kind of a plan is that? It's really depending on the contractor to be keenly aware of what his role is and what all of the different things are. And he's having to just kind of pull them out from memory versus hiring an architect and planning ahead and getting an entire document put together that outlines all of the different conditions for the different wall types and the how the roof interacts and where the bearing points are, what the foundation is going to be, and any complications are already identified ahead of time, so that by the time the contractor is even looking at this instruction manual, so to speak, all that's already been thought through. And I think if you spend a little bit more up front, you're almost guaranteed to not have as many complications arise on the back end that then will drive your costs up.
Yeah. And I think that goes to show for many things. If you're going to spend more money, energy, and time up front, you're likely going to like what you purchased more so. Whether that be a car, a home, or even a suit that you're going to buy. If you take more time and energy to get that, it's going to fit better. You're going to use it longer. And ultimately, you're just going to like your decision a whole lot more. So getting an architect up in there early can definitely help mitigate some of those risks of a broken budget down the road as well.
Yeah, well, you had a really good point right there. If you're buying a car as a car buyer, do you go for the car that has bare bones, no frills, no bells and whistles? Do you go for the car that it's safe and it's in budget and it gets you from point A to point B, but it doesn't have AC, it doesn't have a radio, it doesn't have power seats, it doesn't have leather seats? Do you go for a car that uses the plain old windshield wipers from 1973, or do you go with a car that has the rain sensing wipers now, or do you have a car that's got LED headlights, or are you still using the old bulbs? So if you think about it like a car, we spend extra for the convenience factor of having a car that has all the comfort built in and all the extra built in. But when you think about homes, we often shy away from that because, yeah, it costs more, but there's a benefit to having all that.
Yeah.
that a lot of people just don't want. They say they want it, they don't really buy it. They don't put their money where their mouth is. And then, especially in the construction world, there's a lot of homes out there that look really fancy, but are just basic homes underneath. It's a thin veneer of beauty on something that really should be improved from a foundational level.
Yeah. And from the real estate or real estate agent perspective of that, if you're going to go the extra mile when you're first making those renovations, they're likely going to hold up longer and better impact your resale value on the way out. We can tell when we're going to houses and they look good, but we get that inspection report and it's like ding, 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 ding. Oh, well, they just didn't take the time to hit the really necessary things that people really should be hitting on when doing renovations on their homes.
Right. Yep. I agree.
Perfect. So we've talked about a little bit of the budget in here. I know there's a lot of people out there. I've got clients that are like this. They want to bring in an architect or a contractor to do a lot of the major changes, maybe layout changes, putting up drywall. But there's also some things that people want to do DIY. Are there things that you recommend that people don't do that for and actually get a contractor or an architect for? And what things maybe could somebody do themselves that would save them a couple dollars on their renovation?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. As someone who's very handy, I'm not a craftsman by any means, but I can put a motor in a car. I did that last winter. I can fix electrical and gas lines because I have some experience of that in the past. I, can install dishwashers and garbage disposals, and I have the skills and ability that I've taken some risk in the past to try to learn and figure out. And plus, YouTube University, right? You can learn anything on YouTube. So on one hand, I want to say, yeah, you should DIY as much as you can, but do it right. Take the time to do your research and figure it out because it's beneficial to you for you to understand how things work and why things go the way they go. What's the reason behind the means and methods of this construction project you're doing. And so, like, part two to that is also if you do it yourself, you'll have a greater understanding as to why it costs so much and maybe a greater respect for the professionals that are out there doing the jobs on the regular. That said, if you do it yourself and you do it right, it's probably still going to be done better than if you had paid somebody else. But maybe that's just me because I'm a handyman. And then, yeah, if you get it right the first time, you're definitely going to save money, but that's a big if. Usually, even on small projects for me, I'm running to the store 3 or 4 times because this didn't work like I thought it was going to work, or I got the wrong piece. And so the pitfalls are if you mess something up, it can wind up costing significantly more than it would have otherwise.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I just recently had to fix a garage door, and it turned into such a bigger ordeal than I expected. I got the new keypad so you can open it from the outside of the garage. I hooked up like the visor remote, and I did that. And long story short, the garage door was opening and closing as it pleased for no reason. Had a tenant in the property. They were trying to move in, and all of their goods or their personal possessions were sitting in their garage, available for anybody to take. So, I had to
Uh,
learn on the fly how to get that taken care of. Shout out YouTube
yeah,
University.
yeah,
Perfect,
yeah.
man.
And almost everything is figure outable, right?
Yeah.
It's just, do you feel like you as an individual are competent enough to figure it out in a timely fashion?
Yeah, yeah. It's something I look forward to in home ownership as well, and a lot of my clients like they embrace that part of home ownership. It's things are gonna come up that I'm gonna have to just learn how to do, whether it be the garbage disposal or smoke detectors, or maybe a door wasn't hung correctly. Just all these little things that maybe you don't want to call a contractor out to do. You can learn to do yourself, but if you're doing a big job and everything, it's probably best to get an architect or contractor looking at everything in
Yeah,
a more holistic approach on how to maybe there's a common issue somewhere in here that we're not seeing that they would be able to resolve so you're not having to call people back out to fix problems in your home. Sick.
right. Yeah, I agree.
Talked about the budget, probably the biggest part of the renovations, but where does that budget get spent? We're talking about the project scope. What is a project scope?
Yeah, so it is start to finish everything that is going to happen. Everything it's listed out, hopefully, somewhere on paper or in an email that's saying, here's what you're expecting and here's what we're gonna do, and your end product is gonna be XYZ. And so just trying to uh help homeowners understand that like scope creep is a thing too. You can set out a budget and a scope, and halfway through the project something changes. So there's you spend a little more, and then something else changes. You spend a little more. Next thing you know, the scope's one and a half or doubled, and there goes your budget. And so, as an architect, um, helping homeowners prioritize their scope and their what needs to be um, put to the top of the list. Like, what are the big ticket items that the big ticket expenses that are going to blow that budget? Is it some really fancy doors? Is it a steel beam that you're going to have to install because you wanted a big open floor plan, open concept? Or maybe it's adding a really high end finish in the kitchen that, like, man, if we could um, cut that down a little bit or take out some of the budget from that and plug it in somewhere else, then maybe we can accept a little bit of a scope creep as the price goes up and up and up. I've never seen a project where the price was less than what we thought it was going to be at the beginning, if that helps clear things up.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think people sometimes can get aggravated with that. But if you have a conversation with your whoever's working on your home beforehand, they'll help you understand how the budget can increase if there's going to be things that arise that you want to change or not, depending on what happens during that renovation. Like,
Yeah.
I see a lot of homes on the market. I got one like in mind. Like, picture like $175,000 home. Say it's in Bates Hendricks or Fountain Square, pretty good areas. It's not exactly like livable quite yet. Maybe it needs some new flooring, a new kitchen. But a lot of the times we see those and we can't really decide, is it worth to get that property up to livable standards, or should we maybe do a larger scale renovation to get it up to top of the market standards? Are there any signs that help you predict whether a home needs those smaller renovations or maybe a more full scale job?
Yeah, I mean, for me anyway, I'm always looking at the bones of the house. If the foundation is sound and the walls look like they're in good shape and the roof's not caving in, then maybe it's just cosmetic and you can just get away with bringing it up to livable standards. But there's a big difference too in livable standard. Like, what is that standard? Is it buying just enough product to make the inside look new, or is it um, leveling out the floor so that there's no high and low spots? Is it um, or jacking up the whole corner of the house because maybe one side of the house is sinking a little bit? So there's that, and then also if there are underlying issues, like, why not just knock them all out at once? Do the whole renovation, the big ticket renovation that's going to cost a lot, but you've solved the mold issues, you solved the water intrusion, you solved the sinking foundation problems. Maybe it needs a whole new roof, but maybe that's an opportunity to insulate in a place that you wouldn't have normally done. So you can definitely spend a lot more doing a full renovation, but is the investment, or either as an investment property or as your own property, your own house, is the investment worth it? Are you going to recoup that money when you're ready to sell? And so those are just things to think about. There's no real good answer because everything's constantly fluid. The market's always changing. We're always in a cycle, and so even timing your sale right is probably a big portion of that. But if it's something that you can just tackle in a weekend, like, do it. But if there's something behind the wall that you like, oh, the wall is squishy over here in the corner, we should probably figure that out. Well, yeah, let's actually figure that out. Don't just put a new coat of paint on it and call it good.
Yeah, we definitely see that a lot, but can't fix them all.
No, definitely can't.
um, you're an architect that's focused a little bit more on the sustainability and efficiency aspect of design. We see a lot of small homes here in Indianapolis. Are there any unique or some like favorite approaches that you take to those smaller homes to maximize them when space is limited?
Yeah, definitely. Like, creating multi-purpose rooms, multi-purpose spaces. It's becoming really popular, especially like during COVID when everybody had to work from home, and so all of a sudden every room in your home was a home office, or maybe they weren't, and so you had to find one space that worked better, that you could have a little privacy or be able to focus for a bit, and so just thinking about how rooms can serve multiple purposes or multiple functions throughout the day is one way to take advantage of small spaces. Kind of like how tiny homes or RVs work. They pack a lot into a very confined space. And it's not always the easiest because maybe you have to put the bed away somehow, fold it up and slide it under, and all of a sudden it becomes a couch. um, but if you look around the world, there are definitely a lot of other societies that make use of, like Japan, for instance. There's no more room in Japan, right? So it's finding ways to use the space that they have, and so a lot of the homes there are very conveniently uh, puzzled together, and so just finding ways to, can a dining room double as a hangout space? Can maybe you don't have a formal dining room at all? You get rid of the formal dining room and you just let it turn into some other space. Maybe it's a dual office for a husband and wife who both work from home, or maybe it's a homework space for the kids after school. Um, and even turning closets into little tiny desk areas is one thing that I've done in the past. So, um, yeah, just trying to make use of space, or even verticality. Is there a way to use a space above head height that, um, like inside of a closet, can you use that for something besides storage? Or if you need more storage space, yeah, let's build some shelves up high that tuck it up out of the way without needing to build a new storage room or closet.
Perfect. I was just recently watching a video, and this is slightly off topic, but about Japan. They are like so out of space there. When they have like big snowfalls, there's nowhere for them to push the snow. So they get all these excavators lined up on the coast to just turn the ocean while they dump in loads and loads of snow. So just another sustainable solution when you're minimized on space. You gotta figure out other things to do.
Yeah, yeah. Where does the snow go? Can't wait for it to melt.
Yeah.
So,
They wouldn't be able to go anywhere the whole time. They just dump it in the ocean instead. Sick, man. That's always awesome to hear about because we do have a lot of homes here that are smaller, so it's also always just cool to look at that. I'm curious on my end, just personally, do you like Murphy beds as a solution?
yeah, absolutely. I've used Murphy beds in a lot of spaces that double as guest bedrooms.
Yeah,
You know, or even in the rental market, Murphy beds work great. Or another option is trundle beds. You can turn one bed into two.
hmm
So there's a number of different ways to add more sleeping space if that's something that you're interested in, for sure.
my mom's got a Murphy bed in her home office now. It's kind of cool. It's where her grandkids stay when they come over.
Yeah,
It's neat.
yeah,
So we've got the project scoped, we've outlined a budget. There's some other things that we need to get done before work actually commences and the project is finished, i.e., permits and approvals. What are the common permits that you're pulling, or what permits are necessary to get a common renovation done?
yeah. Every municipality is a little bit different. Here in Indy, the first thing we need is an improvement location permit that just says here's the general concept of what we're trying to accomplish. It's usually a very simple permit to get, um, but that's usually followed by a structural permit where you're actually saying, hey, here's what we're building, that and here's the layout, here's the measurements, here's the stud spacing, here's the size of the headers and the beams and the rafters and the joists, and so it's a lot more in depth. And then, I mean, those are really the two main ones. But usually, if you're building something new, you're going to have to put electrical in it, and then sometimes plumbing as well if it's a bathroom renovation or an addition. And so there's a number of different permits that are usually involved in something, whether it's a renovation or an addition or even construction. There's drainage permits also, but your contractor should be knowledgeable about which permits are required for your renovation, and they usually are the ones that help hold those.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that I think about least in a home renovation. I have no clue where to start when it comes to permits, but sounds like pretty much if you're adding something to your home, you should probably look into or at least assume you're going to need a permit.
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll move on from permits. I don't think we need to discuss those too much. Let's talk about kitchens and bathrooms renovations. Those are probably the most common things that pop up that people want to change in their home. They're points where everybody's using in the home that get used a lot. And the style and design changes from year to year, and people want to feel up with the times. So, what are the current trends for kitchens and bathrooms are you seeing?
Yeah. I don't want to pump the question, and I won't, but I'm one who definitely considers timeless design to be something that is critical to making your money work for you. Trends come and go, and so if you're constantly trying to stay on top of the most recent trends, you're going to spend a lot more money upgrading and upgrading over the years. But that said, kitchens are where people hang out now, and so kitchen lounge areas, or where the breakfast table used to be, usually has some seating now. It might not have a table that someone's sitting at. It might keep the table, but that's where people are congregating these days. We're not hanging out as often in a formal living room. Maybe there's a den that we're hanging out at after hours, but especially if one or two or three people are in the kitchen working on preparing meals, everybody wants to be around that space and hang out together. And then also, like, especially post-COVID, surfaces that are either self-cleaning or can kill bacteria, or are easy to clean is definitely something that people are looking for now. And then as far as bathrooms go, having a spa-like bathroom is what I hear a lot of people want. We want surfaces and an aesthetic that looks like a retreat. It looks like something that isn't your grandma's bathroom, right? And so just pushing for higher end finishes, which of course kitchens and bathrooms are also the most expensive parts of a house. They're definitely where the money is spent the most often. And so pushing for higher end finishes is something that, like, people definitely want these days. And then too, like, functioning, we've got heated toilet seats and toilets with built-in bidets. We've got shower heads that are like rain showers that come from overhead, and now we've got shower bars that you can install on one or more walls that are going to spray you from the sides. And we've got steam showers and linear drains versus the round drains, or curveless showers that you just have a wet room basically that's all tiled, and in the middle of it you've got a tub and a shower, and maybe it's a freestanding tub or a clawfoot tub. But just there are a lot of different things that you can incorporate, and a lot of different thoughts that a design professional would have about how to incorporate those successfully. Because one thing I've heard is that people that often want large walk-in showers, whether it's frameless glass, or maybe there's no door on it, it's just a room that you walk into, often walk away cold from their shower because it's not a cozy enough space for the heat to be retained, and so you end up losing a lot of the heat to the size, the volume of the room, and nobody wants a cold shower, right?
Yeah.
So it's just thinking those things through and planning ahead that I think is really making a bathroom successful if you're trying to keep up with the latest trends.
Yeah, me personally, bathrooms are always the, like, diamond, I guess, of the listing. If it doesn't have a nice bathroom, I wouldn't want to buy it. I do think that bathrooms are a lot more subjective than a kitchen might be. I think there's a lot more common trends or efficiencies that get placed into kitchens than bathrooms. I think bathrooms more reflect the personality and the wants of the homeowner, where a kitchen is where the homeowner brings others to. So they want that space to be a little more functional. What are some of the ways that a kitchen can be optimized for functionality and flow?
I mean, just definitely planning out the layout in advance. If you build a space and in the middle of construction decide, oh, I want to put windows over here, because you didn't have a plan that already outlined it explicitly where the windows should go. Where do you put your furniture now? Or in a kitchen, where do you put your appliances? And so thinking these things through in advance, having a plan that you are keenly aware of before going into construction is definitely something that, of course, if you're hiring an architect, you're already thinking that way. But I definitely recommend it to anyone that's looking to do a renovation or an addition. And like for bathrooms, planning for the paths that people walk as they move through a space. And both really, like, it's not about getting the perfect Instagram photo or Pinterest picture. It has to be usable. And so having a space that you've thought through, where am I going to be standing? Where am I going to be walking from point A to point B? And how am I going to use that space because nobody wants to have to, push somebody out of the way just to get through in a bathroom.
Yeah, I've seen some in those like older homes where the bathroom or the toilet in the bathroom is within hand washing distance of the sink. Gotta say, that's gotta be one of the more annoying things I've seen in a bathroom. It's not necessarily aesthetically pleasing for me.
Yeah, or putting in an oversized sink, and then your toilet has to be shoved up against the wall because there's not enough room for it,
Yeah,
and don't even have enough room to use it.
gotta squeeze by your sink just to get on the toilet.
Yep.
Nobody wants that. Cool, man. Other parts of the home that we need to focus on are rooms. A lot of the times we'll see a house in Indianapolis. Maybe it's a 1,400 square foot house, but it's only got two bedrooms and it's got room to add a third. What are some of the structural or logistical challenges in actually getting another bedroom added into a home that does have the square footage for it?
Um, Foundations really are the. I mean, it's a foundation. It's easy to do. People have been pouring concrete foundations for generations, but foundations are key. If you don't prep the ground right and you don't uh, plan to get your foundation deep enough in the ground, especially here where we have frost heave, where the ground freezes and then it thaws, and as it's freezing, it's expanding, and then it thaws and contracts, and you get that pothole banker, right, in Indy. It's causing potholes everywhere, but also it's also shifting foundations that aren't built right, and so getting your foundation right, getting it dry, are definitely um, the most important uh, logistical concepts to wrap your head around, because it's the first thing that goes in. Once that's done, even if your framing's not great, it'll still hold together. Even if your sheetrock guy didn't do a great job, you still got a wall. Put some spackle on it, paint it, it'll look fine. You can put some trim up. You've got a room. But if you don't get the first part right, everything after that is going to um, just be worthless in the end.
Yeah. And I see some people, they get caught up with like new builds and just assume that they're gonna have a nice set foundation, and say that's where I've seen probably more of some of the foundation errors, especially ones I haven't expected. Of course, we've got homes built in the 1800s here, and those all have foundation issues. But I don't ever look at a new build and just assume it's gonna have a nice foundation. I've seen homes where one corner of the house is 6 inches lower than the rest of the house. You gotta be really cautious with building a foundation here in Indianapolis. We did used to have a lot of wetlands here, so definitely got to pay attention to that.
That and also, like, people think, oh, I'll just rip up the carpet and leave an exposed concrete. I can just stain and polish the concrete. You're going to pull up the carpet and find a bunch of cracks,
Yeah,
because the majority of builders are not pouring concrete that was meant to be left exposed. They're pouring concrete that barely holds together as it is, and you're letting the rebar and the wire mesh do its job, but it's not something that's meant to be an aesthetic. And so, can you make it look good? Sure, but don't plan on it being a perfect slab when you pull it up. And people are shocked that slabs crack. They think, oh, is concrete thing supposed to hold together? Why is it cracked? And if you're building to code minimum, that's what you're going to get. So really looking for an architect or a builder who designs and builds to a higher standard to build better than code is going to be key if you're looking for something like a polished slab.
yeah. I think we've covered a lot on the home renovation aspect. Just wanted to go into one more topic before we wrap things up here, and that's historical homes. Definitely a more niche topic, but we do have a lot of historical homes here in Indianapolis, and people love to purchase them. What are the unique considerations when renovating a historic home?
Yeah, I love historic homes. I'm a sucker for old Victorians, Tudors, anything that's like early 1900s or older. But they say they don't build them like they used to. The wood back then was fantastic because a lot of it was from virgin forest, and the grain on the wood was super tight, so you end up with really really hard solid wood. And in the same or on at the same time, I guess they cobbled things together that we would never do today because it's just not sound practice. And so, even on a recent bathroom renovation I was working on, the walls that built the closet, the linen closet in the bathroom, the studs didn't even go all the way up. They had pieced together multiple studs and then added a bunch of shims and put another piece of blocking on the side to nail it all together and keep it from collapsing. And I thought, man, like why did they do that? But they were just reusing the leftover pieces that they had cut off the ends and left in a big pile that these days we just throw it and burn. So there's a lot of unexpected finds behind the walls in a historic home. You never know what's hiding behind the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. It is crazy to think of. They're just piecing together that wood to make those studs. I'm surprised they were even still nailed together at this point. They were there for a while. Crazy. Obviously we both like historic homes, but the common home buyer is going to want to make some changes to that home. In your opinion, what are some of the modern amenities that fit into a historic home while preserving some of the character?
That's so subjective. Good question, but you know, if you have a historic home and you want to make changes to it, get a good designer, because what you want and what somebody else might want can be two different things. I might want a kitchen that still looks of its own time and has a more rustic appearance. So I might be looking to hide my appliances in a public pantry or around the corner in a new kitchen area, kitchen wing that didn't exist before. But if you're looking to modernize the kitchen, you could still do that by all means. So just thinking through different options, looking at building a Pinterest board of what all you want specifically as the end user is important, because anybody, you can walk into any house and use it because you know how a stove works, but making it what you want is really the key because you're living there.
Perfect, man. Well, thank you for all of your insights today. Before I let you out of here, I've got some more questions for you, a little more geared towards you. First up, if the listeners had to take one thing away from today's conversation, what would that be?
Plan ahead with someone who's competent, and put a good team together so that you're not the only one trying to figure things out, because there's a lot of mental anguish and burden that you as the homeowner or as the end user has to deal with if you don't have a team to help walk you through those.
Great insight. If if listeners were to find you in your natural habitat, where would you be?
Out in nature, hiking, or I bought some canoes last year. Doing something with my family, or lifting in the gym because I'm a avid weightlifter, and then tinkering with anything, just about anything that can be disassembled. I played with Legos as a kid, and now anything with parts I'm like obsessed with.
Perfect, man. Perfect. What are your top three places in Indy?
As regards to what? Because like I don't get out much. I've got 4 kids, so if I'm not out working or marketing or networking, I'm usually at home. But like my wife and I are total foodies, so I love trying like new to us restaurants, or just trying to find the best food wherever we're at.
Yeah. Do you have a couple of them that you have like a go to, or maybe a place to take the kids to entertain them for a couple hours on a weekend?
Indy's got a ton of parks, so trying to like get the kids out of the house and let them run at any of the parks around town. As far as food goes, like was it Siam Square down in Fountain Square is really good. There was a burger place called Beast at the Amp that closed down, but he's doing like little pop-ups around town now. Those were by far the best burger I've had anywhere in Indiana. And then, gosh, I mean, Amelia's Bakery and Coffee, we're there a lot.
Sweet. Those are some spots I need to check out as well. I haven't tried out all of those. I've heard great things about Amelia's, though.
Oh
Perfect.
yeah, you should definitely get some of their bread. Take it home with you.
Okay, okay. I'll go stop by this weekend. Lastly, where can people find more of you if they want to reach out about a renovation or just general architect questions?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I don't think there's anything special, just Jeremy Portillo. And then I'm on Instagram at retrofit.design, and you can check out my website at www.retrofit.design.
Perfect. I'll make sure to get those linked down at the bottom. Thank you so much for your time here today, Jeremy. I've got a quote to leave us off with. I've been forgetting to do these the past couple of weeks, but today's quote is: "Don't you dare underestimate the power of your own instinct." You want to guess who that's from?
I have no clue.
It is Barbara from Shark Tank. She dabbles in the real estate world, so I wanted to get a nice quote from her. She's a firm believer that your instinct in real estate will likely pay off. So,
I could hear her saying that though.
right,
That's good.
right. Thank you so much, man.